The co-op has been one of the absolute great joys of my life.
I work there 4 days a week, and I think I shop 6 days a week.
It's friendly. There's a Yiddish word called heimish. It means it's got a down-home feeling that you won't find in big supermarkets.
The co-op is really important to our community because it is locally owned and it gives the member owners a direct say in what happens there. We're not controlled by some corporate office in New York City or wherever.
Our family shops at the co-op almost every single day of the week, the month, the year. 8 in the morning, right when they open up, to, you know, squeezing in the doors at 1 minute to 10 o'clock, trying to get, you know, a half gallon of ice cream.
If I had to describe the co-op in one word, maybe energizing. The food I buy makes me feel good and gives me great energy. The people there give me great energy.
You know, we started 40 years ago, 1971, teeny store, and have grown into, I think, the 19th busiest co-op in the country on sales per square foot.
I buy what I want at the co-op, and the cashier says to me, "Are you a member?" And I say, "Yes." And she says, "What is your number?" And when I tell her my number in the low 400s, I'm just glowing inside, but they don't know it. It's sort of a brag. I've been there a long time, and I plan to stay there a long time, whether you think so or not.
My member number is in the low 100s, and they're now nearly 8,000 now. And what I like to say is I was co-op when co-op wasn't cool. You know, because back then it was like this weird sort of hippy-dippy thing, you know, that you could do, you know, and it's really funny how, you know, how successful it's become on Elmwood there, because it's sort of become like, you know, kind of an in thing now.
Where the cross-section of Buffalo meets to get their eats.
It's an institution. It's a Buffalo institution. It always was.
The co-op was formed in 1971, and so we've been around for 40 years. When we started, we were all member run, so the members came in and did all the work in the store. And everything from cutting and bagging cheese to driving down to market to pick up produce to ringing out customers at the cash register. So people even rang themselves out back in those days.
It started out as a little buying club. I had a neighbor across the street, and one day she called me over and said, "Dorothy, something's going on over on Lexington, and I'm worried. You ought to see those hippies. They're terrible looking. And I don't know who I can trust to go over and see what's going on. Would you?" And I said, "Sure." So I went over, and sure enough, it looked like the guys out of 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, but gals too. All in a line, quite a long line, and everybody seemed to have a long piece of paper in his hand and maybe a pencil. I didn't. So I got in line, and one of the fellows turned around and said very nicely, "Excuse me, ma'am, but you won't be able to get any food if you don't fill out a paper." I don't look like I need very much food, and I said, "What kind of food is it, and where does it come from?" "Oh," he said, "it's good food. It's what you want to be eating." And he got one of the long papers for me, and it was an order form for things like Bulgar and spelt and things I didn't know much about. You bought it by the bulk, but a lot of bulk, not just a half pound. So I filled out a couple of things I thought I could use, and they said, "Come back next week and you'll get it." What kind of a store is that? I didn't know. Little by little, it became a storefront, and little by little, they had really nice produce.
It was very, very much run by the seat of the pants. When I started working there, there was really nothing that you could call accounting.
It was a very wonderful and different time. The keys to the co-op, you probably heard this from other old people like me, they used to be kept under a flower pot in a neighbor's home. So whoever was opening the co-op that day would walk up on the front porch and take the key to the co-op from under the flower pot and open up to get the day started.
The co-op was very countercultural. It was fringy, and there were some strange characters hanging around too.
They looked like the motorcyclists who zip past you when you're already speeding on a road. That's exactly what they looked like.
I'll tell you, when I first went to the co-op store, I was intimidated. It was so funky. It felt like a club, you know, with a secret password and a handshake and something like that. It was so different than any other store.
But it was very inclusive, it was very egalitarian. They welcomed anyone, they reached out to the neighborhood, and I think, you know, in spite of itself, it kind of caught on.
It was crazy in there. It was like, it was really small, and it was very busy, and it was like, it was really chaotic a lot of times, but I loved it.
At that point, there was such a very, very heavy left-wing political vibe when you went in there that I really just went in and got my vegetables and got out before somebody laid a big rap on me.
Originally, they had a slogan, which was painted on the wall, food for the people, not for profit.
Well, we were all communists. I mean, we were all socialists. If you weren't a socialist at that time, you were not on the bus.
Having that Marxist background really helped because it gave us some very clear concepts of what we were trying to do. That we were, number one, not trying to make money. Number two, that we were not us serving someone else, but building a community to serve all of its members. And originally, everybody had to be a working member.
And what's going on in the world is Vietnam protests, civil rights. There's a back to the earth movement. We had lived on a communal farm. There's a consciousness about being collective about things, about not being caught up in the system.
Kind of a vision of the cooperative society of the future.
When I moved to Buffalo, it was like amazing. There were 3 food co-ops, a cooperative bakery, a cooperative restaurant, a women's shelter, all organized under cooperative lines. So I thought I was in nirvana. It was amazing.
I think a lot of people were trying to put together some of what they experienced in the 60s in kind of a more practical way.
And at the same time, there was a beginning of awareness of the debilitation of our food. People were beginning to realize that a lot of the food that we were eating were indeed partially poisoned.
And one of the consequences was a desire to have food that was what we now call natural foods, that did not have artificial fertilizers and didn't have artificial pesticides. Also, if you recall, if you look at the co-ops, there's a strong undercurrent of environmentalism and reduction of packaging. And the co-ops, one of the innovations that they brought to the grocery movement was buying in bulk, bringing your own container and filling your own container.
The co-op, when it was real new, had the bulk stuff, the grains and the bulk stuff, in garbage cans. It was the cheapest way to go, and you know. And I remember a woman was in there with her little boy, and the little boy says, "Mommy, why is the food in garbage cans?" Good question, right? And I think it was shortly after that that we got rid of the garbage cans and made some wooden bins. I don't remember who built them, but we built some wooden bins. We really upgraded. You know, why are there food in garbage cans?
It was like going to the pioneer days. It was very homespun, but it was exciting, this new way of buying food.
At that time, we had consensus voting, so everything had to be agreed on unanimously.
We're not going to carry any products that harm the people who consume those products or harm the environment or the world.
Anything that was controversial couldn't pass the consensus rules to be able to be carried. So we had stuff that only everyone could agree on, and that kept it small. It was amazing it existed at all. There was enough consensus about certain things that everybody ate cheese. I guess it was before vegans came in. Otherwise, today it probably would have been a stumbling block.
The fights people had over sugar and tuna fish and...
You know, oh, white sugar. I realized white sugar is not the healthiest thing in the world. So, but there was this real purist kind of thing, you know, that we don't want any white sugar polluting the store. You know?
I mean, there's a very famous story about the fight at North Buffalo Food Co-op over whether they should carry toilet paper or not. At some point in the conversation, someone pointed out that in Africa, they use twigs. And apparently that was so persuasive that North Buffalo, at least for a temporary period of time, decided not to carry toilet paper. Though I'll bet there was no one in that room who used twigs.
One of the interesting things about working there at that time was that you became a minor local celebrity. Lots of people knew you, and they had opinions about you, and they thought that you were somebody who you were not. They thought that you represented some kind of level of purity, which you probably did not. You know, there used to be a graffito in the co-op bathroom which said, "Michael Delaney eats chicken wings." And various other comments after that.
The compromise we've come up to is that we will give our members the choice and we will educate them as to what the options are.
I don't think purity survives. I think you have to be flexible and not to be too rigid about things. If you want to kind of keep going forward, you have to kind of, you know, fudge on some of your so-called ideals, you know. Because I think there's a greater good involved, which is to keep the co-op going. And if it's not quite as perfect as it once was, at least it's still alive and thriving, you know.
We moved from Lexington Avenue in 2005 to Elmwood Avenue. The process of moving from Lexington to Elmwood Avenue really started in 1998. And we just started having these member forums. And we asked people, you know, where do you see the co-op in 10 years? What would you like from your co-op? Out of these member forums, they created a vision for a store that would be in the neighborhood, that would have wider aisles, parking, have natural light, and have a deli. And with that vision, we went out and we said, here's our vision. This is what we're trying to create, but we need money in order to do it.
They approached me and a lot of other members and said, would you be willing to take a little risk, lend us some money, and we'll give you interest if you want it?
A lot of the people who came forward and made loans to the co-op were people who had been involved since the 70s and weren't necessarily people with a lot of money, but wanted to see the co-op successful.
You think of these hippie people, you know, they're not wealthy or anything, and yet as a group coming together, everyone bringing a few thousand, they were able to finance this dream.
To me, it was such a lesson for Buffalo that don't look for someone to come in from the outside and rescue you. It's like we've got to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and we can do it. The resources and the energy are here.
Over 200 members lent us over $500,000. That money was lent at less than interest rate. It was the largest member loan drive in the United States of America that was below market rate of interest at the time.
It was the second biggest loan drive among co-ops in the United States, and out of one of the smallest stores, out of one of the poorest cities in the nation. It was really just a phenomenally inspiring thing.
It was a grassroots organization from within the city that raised its own money and has made it happen right here and now. It's there, it's thriving, it's hiring people, it's helping the neighborhood.
My family's been farming in this area since 1820, so I've sort of got a long history with local farming. And within my lifetime, that farm, which is out on Willard Shear Road in Elma, will probably no longer be. It's not currently an active farm, and it will probably be sold off to development within my lifetime, which I find very depressing. And so I'm really personally motivated to help local farmers thrive. We have farmers come into the store and actually sample their products, and that's a fantastic opportunity for customers to be able to talk to their grower and find out how they grow things and find out more about what it's like to live on a farm. And it's also a great opportunity for farmers to stop, to get indoors for a few minutes and talk to their customers. We make it a priority to buy from local farmers because it's our mission. Our mission is the reason we exist, and nurturing the local economy is something that we do. It's also something that our owners want from us. They want to be able to walk in here and get homegrown tomatoes. So it's a lot harder for us to buy from tons of local farmers, but it's really important to us to have those local products in the store, to have those fresh varieties, those varieties that are mostly grown for flavor rather than for shippability or storability, so that we have a lot of these products that our customers want and that help the farmers make a living and stay in business, so that our children and our grandchildren will have access to local food.
I'm Dan Tower. We're on Dan Tower Farm. This farm has been going since the 1850s, 5th generation, and 160 acres. These peaches here are actually ones that, it'll be on Lexington shelves tomorrow after they pick up at the Clinton Bailey Market. Oh, the pickers are the mainstay of the whole farm. It's definitely an art. You've got to be able to go into the orchard and decide when you need to pick. They look for color, they look for size, and they look for maturity. Decide which peach needs to stay for a few more days and which peach is just ready to come so we can take it to market. What about the other block? You think the other block will have, or?
The block up front here, they're still small, they're hard, but I think they can wait a couple days.
And being so dry this year, the quality is excellent on them. I mean, the juice will almost, you got to be kind of careful sometimes biting into them.
Stand over a sink.
The Lexington Co-Op has probably been buying since I've been on the farm, and it's been over 20 years, I would say. So it's been working really well. I mean, as far as having somebody local that would, buy my product. Bigger stores don't deal with, like a small grower like myself. They tend to go to the big grower that can ship them quantities or masses of product, where, I being just a small family farm, cannot put the volume out for the bigger stores. And the quality of, buying from a local farmer where they can go out and get the product closely to maturity than having something that maybe shipped in. They have to definitely pick fairly firm to be able to ship at that distance. Our product is probably as close as you can get to having something that's fresh picked right off the tree and ready to bite into, and having that juice just gush all through, and it really makes a taste difference on the product. That might be an order from Lexington. Yeah.
I think sharing knowledge for us is part of our mission. We started doing film screenings and canning classes last year. People all over the country, with the recession on and concerned about food prices, are starting to do a lot more canning and connect to the local harvest. And so we're excited to help people sort of get back some of those old traditions. Canning is also a great way for people to buy from local farmers. So instead of just buying, a couple peaches that they need to eat for the week, they buy a bushel of peaches and then take them home and can them and eat them all winter long. It's a great way to preserve the harvest.
Hello, we're Tim and Rachel Grant and Micah. We own Standfast Farm in Forestville, New York. We have approximately 75 head of beef cattle, mostly Black Angus, with some Red Angus and Hereford mix. My job as a grass-fed beef farmer, I'm just managing the natural system at work. By subdividing our pasture with fences, we can get them to eat more evenly across the pasture, spread their manure more evenly across the pasture. My favorite part is to watch the cattle and to listen to them grazing. I love observing nature. There's something just seems so right about seeing black cattle out on green grass. Grass-fed beef, I just describe it as it makes sense. Cattle, their whole bodies, everything in them is designed to harvest forages and digest them. And when you look at the omega-3s and the vitamin E that is in the grass itself, it just makes sense that the beef, which is the end product for us, is going to be higher in those things. And I think a lot of people are surprised by the flavor of our beef and come back and just tell us how good it tastes. It's a different flavor, it's a more full flavor. And it's hard to put words to it, but I mean, I could eat a pound of ground beef every night of the week, and sometimes I do. We've been running Stand Fast Farm now this is going on our 5th year, and we've been selling beef to the co-op for 3.5 years. It's funny because I think it's like vegetarians and carnivores can coexist in the co-op. It's amazing and people have all different political views, all kinds of religious views. It's like, it doesn't matter because we all want good food and we all want food that makes sense. And that's what draws people to the co-op, and that's what has brought us to them as a vendor.
In Western New York alone, there's over 7,500 farms in the 8-county region, and the Lexington Co-op has made a commitment over the last 40 years, and they've really been a pioneer in buying local, and they've been a shining example on how supporting and working with local vendors and nurturing the local economy can be a huge success for a business.
5 Points Bakery is a 100% whole grain bakery. It's as simple as that. Five Points started to fill a gap in our food system in Buffalo. Nowhere in the city could you find bread that was local. You could find bread that was baked locally, but none of the bread was sourced from local wheat. We source all of our grains from local farmers, and we mill it in a stone mill here right at the bakery. We don't extract any of the bran or the germ, which is what they do to make white breads. Even in whole wheat breads, they can extract some, but we use the entire grain in everything that we do.
She's never failed me.
And so I monitor the wheat closely with the farmer. We go out in the field together. I'll even go out on my own and just kind of see how it's growing. We field dry all of our wheat, but it's a very specific day to harvest. And the day it's ready, it's ready. And every day after that, the protein content, which is necessary for bread to rise well, goes down. And so you go out to the field and you can taste it. You can taste when that wheat kernel gets hard. I can taste the bread in the wheat kernel, and then you know it's time. We supply the co-op with our two biggest selling breads, the sourdough ciabatta and the multigrain. Our bread, compared to a loaf of bread in a supermarket, is like night and day. If you want to eat our bread in its peak form, you take a slice, you put it in your toaster, you toast it, and you put some butter on it, and that's it.
Great Arrow is a business located in Buffalo, New York, that specializes in greeting cards, specifically hand silkscreen greeting cards. We are the only company in the world, for some reason, that has chosen to do such a crazy, labor-intensive process. It's tremendously hand done. We use young artists who silkscreen print all of the cards. We use very little machinery. Well, it's a craft operation, so you really have to feel with your hands what you're doing. If you look at what Peter's doing is a difficult operation because he's printing with a large volume of ink, and the screen only touches the paper at the moment the squeegee passes over and it snaps back, and that's what gives a smooth finish to the ink. What's the punchline on this card? Something funny. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Silkscreen printing has a flat finish, a very unusual, dense, pigmented flat finish. There is something special about the finish of our cards and the look and feel of them. People can tell a great arrow card when they pick it up. You might enjoy the ink cabinets here. All mixed by hand, all with different names. This paper has recycled content. It's also made from FSC certified forests. It's one of the things we spend quite a bit of time researching is the management of the forest. I use electronic communications all the time. It's expedient. I love it. But when I want someone to get the message and the message is important, I think there's no more exciting thing than to have someone in a uniform walk up on your front step for 44 cents and deliver a handwritten message. I just think it's powerful. And I think other people do too.
I think that our co-op and co-ops nationally can play a huge role in helping people understand where their food comes from and how important it is for people to know their farmers, to know how food is made, to know how food is processed. Because as energy prices rise, it's going to be more important to sustain local economies. By knowing where your food comes from locally and being able to support those farmers either out of your pocket or through the co-op makes for a stronger community, which makes for a stronger food industry, which is really important in the United States right now, I believe.
My name is Tony Weiss, and we're on our farm here in East Eden. I've got probably 50 to 60 different varieties of vegetables on the farm here. We raise probably about 10 to 12 different varieties of hot peppers, and long, fat, round, different colors. But there's a demand for it all. It seems as though the people at the co-op appreciate a little higher quality. And we have the variety that they look for. Your commercial growers would never be able to have as large a variety on the scale that we're at. I like growing stuff. I like to see it grow. I like to see, I like to work with nature. When the co-op first got started, we got started with them, got a good relationship with them. We worked closely with the produce managers and let them know what's coming, and they call me once or twice a day and put their order in, and if I can fill it, I fill it. You know, we've been together a long time, almost like a marriage.
We had a 40th anniversary party this summer. It was really fun. It was just a great opportunity to celebrate this community accomplishment. that the community created and has sustained and nurtured for 40 years.
We have 80 employees now. Year to year, the co-op has been growing at about 10% for the last 3 years.
We have about 9,000 customers a week. So on an average day, that's about 1,400. We currently have 7,500 member owners. And we get about 20 new owners a week. 300 varieties of produce. Produce is really our signature department. Right now we have 67 local items in the store. We want to grow the co-op and we want to reach more people. We want to increase our sales so that we can drive more money back into the local economy, so that we can expose more people to the power of a cooperative business model.
I think we live in a time that's terribly fragmented, and we have to work towards a more collective cooperative consciousness. And that's part of the story of the co-op.
It was the members who saved the co-op over and over again when the co-op ran into trouble. It was the members who built the shelves and did the carpentry work and volunteered in the member work program to produce these services at a lower price than you could get at other places in return for a discount. And it was the members who were invested in the store. I would argue that is a radical idea in this society. It is a radical idea. And that one of the most important things that the food co-op is doing is just letting people know that this is even a possibility, even a faint possibility, that it's possible for ordinary people who don't have a lot of money to get together as a group and create a service for themselves that they could not provide as individuals.
The world needs to be more aware that collectively we can make progress, we can help each other, we can get through hard times.
That's why it's important. It's important for people to know that you can do things that way, that it doesn't have to be top down. Nor is it bottom up either. It's all of us. It's all of us.
I'll be around for the 80th. I don't know if I'll be around much after that, but will you interview me for the 80th? I'd like that.